to defend freedom in this country so that my children and my grandchildren never grew up in a country where they didn't understand what freedom was. And when I became an elected official, one of the first things I forgot was I didn't trust politicians. That's one of the reasons I ran. And I would get frustrated when people like yourself would get angry with me. No, I understand, but yes, I had people get angry with me. And I finally said, that's okay. I don't trust government. I need to put myself back in the seat of the people that are there, and they're tired of being lied to. They're tired of empty promises. 40 years ago, and I'm closing with this, 40 years ago, I was 17 years old. I can remember, sorry, I'm emotional, I can remember sitting in the basement watching the television screen, watching Ronald Reagan. I wanted Ronald Reagan to be the president in 1976. What did I know? I was a young kid. I hadn't been to Hungary and Czechoslovakia yet, but I knew enough from my parents and relatives that America could be great again. And it wasn't in 1976. Other than celebrating the 200th anniversary of our country, we weren't a great country. And I remember something Ronald Reagan said that stuck with me. He said, when I was governor of California, we had a watchword. When the government becomes we, instead of they, the people, then we've been here too long. I've never forgotten that. Because it is the people of America that are what make America great, not the politicians. It's the business people. It's the business people that create meaningful jobs, not the politicians. The politicians are not dictators. They don't get a mandate. They're elected by voters, and they're obligated to represent voters. And when they no longer represent the voters, it's time to vote those elected officials out of office and put somebody there that will represent them. At the end of the day, the answer is that people understand that the power of America rests with the people. That the authority of our government rests in the Constitution. And that in the words of Benjamin Franklin, when they were in the midst of the Constitutional Convention, he said this. He said, sirs, I have lived a long time. And the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this fact that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We're at a point in America and in Pennsylvania and here in Berks County where we need to call on the grace and mercy of God to help us bring back our country, not for our sake, but for our children and our grandchildren. God bless you and God bless America.
I'm supposed to use the mic. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. I'm sure that you're going to enjoy his message. Jim Smith is a longtime Patriot. He is with the Smith Law Group, and he's one of us. I won't take any more of his time. So Jim, it's all yours. Yeah, we'll move that over to the end. Is that good for you, Jim? While they're getting set up, a group of us got together. We're having a Judeo-Christian Values and Constitution meeting on February the 26th over at Kissinger's Church. Jim is going to be one of the speakers, Sam Rohr the other. There's flyers back on the table where Carol Gardecki has her books. Please pick one up, see if you can make it. Hopefully there's a lot of good information there. It's the kind of information that we need. So thank you. You ready, Jim?
Thank you, Eldon. Thank you, Linda, for the invitation to speak tonight. Good evening, Patriots. You've been sitting a long time, and I don't know about you, I can't stand to sit for too long. Why don't you stand up for just a minute and join me in offering a brief moment of silence in honor of the life of the greatest jurist of our time, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Thank you. Be seated. In his dissenting opinion in the marriage case last year, Justice Samuel Alito forecasted that the decision, quote, will be used to vilify Americans who are unwilling to assent to the new orthodoxy. In the course of its opinion, the majority compares traditional marriage laws to the laws that deny equal treatment for African Americans and women. He continues to say that the implications of this analogy will be exploited by those who are determined to stamp out every vestige of dissent. It's probably no surprise to anyone here that last year's marriage case has created... I got to get used to the PowerPoint. Sorry, guys. It's probably no surprise to anyone here that last year's marriage case has created a new legal tension between one man's religious liberty, grounded in the explicit text of the First Amendment, and another man's sexual liberty, found floating somewhere alongside the right to privacy among the penumbras and emanations of the Constitution. Progressives have consistently objected to attempts to have the two.
Need some light.
That's not going to help me because I wrote out my speech.
We need some light.
There we go.
We need some light. Can't videotape it. There we go.
Progressives have consistently objected to attempts to have the two rights, sexual liberty, religious liberty, coexist, giving preference every time to sexual liberty over religious freedom. In 2006, a reporter named Maggie Gallagher interviewed this woman, Chai Feldblum, a Georgetown law professor who would later be appointed by President Obama as a commissioner to the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Ms. Gallagher, the reporter, she reported that, quote, when push comes to shove, when religious liberty and sexual liberty conflict, Feldblum admits, quote, I am having a hard time coming up with any case in which religious liberty should win. Sexual liberty should win in most cases. There can be a conflict between religious liberty and sexual liberty, but in most all cases, the sexual liberty should win because that's the only way that the dignity of gay people can be affirmed in any realistic manner. That is a commissioner with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The latest and most troubling battlefield in this war of competing rights exists in SOGI legislation that is creeping into states across our nation and is on Pennsylvania's doorstep. So what is SOGI legislation? Pennsylvania, it's House Bill 1510 and Senate Bill 974. Bills co-sponsored by 3 Berks County legislators, Representatives Caltagirone and Rossi, and Senator Judy Schwenk. Not just supported, co-sponsored. The bills are cleverly named and intentionally named the Fairness Act. But area Republicans, I know, call them the bathroom bill. These bills propose to offer special protections to those claiming discrimination based on their sexual orientation, gender identification, or gender expression. So, although they are named the Fairness Act, they legislate intolerance like no other piece of legislation that I've seen in my lifetime. You may have heard about the damage that's been done in other jurisdictions where SOGIs have been enacted. Meet Ellen Huguenin. She's the owner of Elaine Huguenin, owner of Elaine Photography in New Mexico. Elaine is a photographer who declined to shoot a same-sex union ceremony in New Mexico and was fined. The decision was affirmed by the New Mexico Supreme Court. Meet Jack Phillips. He's the owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado. Jack was a baker who offered to make cakes for same-sex couples but declined to celebrate their then illegal union by creating a wedding cake for the event. He was sued and lost at the Colorado Court of Appeals, so he has stopped making wedding cakes altogether. Meet Baronelle Stutzman, owner of Arlene's Flowers in the state of Washington. Baronelle is a florist who knew and served her customer, Rob Ingersoll, for years, but declined to do an arrangement for his wedding to his same-sex partner. She lost at trial and was ordered to pay a $1,000 fine. The case is currently pending on appeal. Meet Melissa Klein, owner of Sweet Cakes by Melissa in Oregon. Melissa was fined $135,000 for turning away a lesbian wedding despite offering other services to the lesbian couple. I didn't misspeak. I said $135,000. This case is currently on appeal. Meet Blaine Adamson, owner of Hands On Originals T-shirt company in Kentucky. Blaine was sued and fined for declining to make gay pride shirts for a gay pride festival. This case is still in court. Meet Donald and Evelyn Knapp. This has got to be the cutest couple in the whole world. You go on the ADF's website, look up ADF and then /ADF.com, Alliance Defending Freedom.com/conscience, and you'll see the story of Donald and Evelyn Knapp. They own the Hitching Post Wedding Chapel in Idaho. Donald and Evelyn, they're both ordained ministers, and they both own the wedding chapel. They were prosecuted by an anti-discrimination commission in Idaho for refusing to host a same-sex wedding. Fortunately for them, after intense public outcry, the city reversed its position, but the ordinance that they were prosecuted under remains on the books to this day. The LGBT movement frequently compares these folks to the segregationists of the 1950s, refusing to serve gays and lesbians because they're gay and lesbian. But this is a gross and I believe an intentional mischaracterization of the facts. Every one of these individuals was willing to serve or already had served customers in the gay and lesbian community. Where they drew the line was in refusing to commit their talents to foster a celebration that violated their sincerely held religious beliefs. So it's really more like forcing an African American to bake cupcakes for a KKK rally, or forcing a Jewish baker to bake bake a cake celebrating a neo-Nazi group, or forcing a Muslim baker to bake a cartoon cake of Muhammad, or forcing a Jewish or Muslim caterer to provide ham for a wedding reception. Nobody in this room would think about doing that. Because we respect, as Americans, we respect each other's sincerely held religious beliefs. It's a part of who we are. SOGI legislation does nothing except to support intolerance of people holding a different belief. And that, again, is totally un-American. So ask yourself, is it fair to prosecute a doctor that refuses to prescribe hormones to enable a patient to escape the sex the doctor believes God assigned to them and identify with the other? Is it fair to require a Christian charity to place foster children with people that are openly living lifestyles inconsistent with Christian doctrine and its Christian mission? Now listen to this. Is it fair to allow a shelter for abused women to be prosecuted and fined for turning away a large, muscular man who says he is a lesbian, transgender woman stuck in a man's body who was struck by his girlfriend? You might say that's ridiculous. You might. But under SOGIs, the shelter can't say it's only open to people who are born with female anatomy. Because under these laws, we have to accept a person's self-assigned gender identity as fact. No exaggeration. Don't take it from me. I'm quoting an organization called GLAAD, G-L-A-A-D, the most vocal organization in support of the LGBT lobby. They warned America, quote, "A transgender identity is not dependent on medical procedures. Just accept that if someone tells you they are transgender, they are." Period. End quote. In case you haven't had enough, is it fair to allow a men's Bible study on freedom from sexual bondage to be investigated and charged by the Attorney General's office because they don't allow a woman to join them? Is it fair to force a gospel rescue mission for men to allow a woman who claims to identify as a man utilize its showers, bathrooms, and group dorms alongside the men? And this one will blow your mind. Is it fair when a trans girl, that is, a child born a boy who sincerely believes that he is a girl, is it fair when a trans girl signs up to compete in track and field for a rival high school? Your daughter will now compete against a boy who is biologically stronger and faster than your daughter. Title IX of the U.S. Code, one of the greatest feminist legislative accomplishments of the 20th century, is now void in the face of a rule that allows a boy to run as a girl. Patriots, I am grieved to find America where we are today. We are twisted up with laws driven by whipped up emotions and demagoguery rather than right, good reason. And perhaps it's fair to suggest that political sheep on both sides of the aisle are given to this too frequently. I am asking that you call your representatives, every one of them, on the state level, and ask that they courageously oppose House Bill 1510 and Senate Bill 974. God save us, and thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Do you know which of the other legislators in this area are supporting it besides Calderon, Swank, and Rossi?
Who are supporting it?
Who are supporting
I
it?
do not know. Okay, I do not know. I know that they're easy to find. They're on the bill as co-sponsors. But I have not called. I would encourage, as you're calling your representatives, ask them where they stand in the measure.
I know that half of the Senate is sponsoring the bill.
They have a lot of senators, but it's a long list of senators sponsoring the bill.
25 senators sponsored the bill. And of course, what was going around earlier with the petition that we are running to present to the committees in the House and the Senate to kill the bill and keep it from coming to a vote. Because half the Senate does.
Half of the Senate, we have 50 state senators, 25 of them, their names are on the Senate bill as sponsors. And the petition that we were running through the audience earlier is our battle, is our fight to keep the bill from coming to a vote, period. To present tens of thousands of signatures to the committees in the House and in the Senate to defeat this thing and kill it. Because if it comes to a vote, half of the Senate would pass it. And Governor Wolf has listed this as one of his priorities for this year. And I do know that there are homosexual activist groups from other states pouring money into the state to try to force this out.